Good day, people of YouTube. What's going on? My name is AK, owner of Streamers Productions, and today I'm bringing you yet another X-React video presentation. And in this video, we're going to be talking about emulation. Now, the team behind the Citra emulator for 3DS has returned with a brand new project titled Yuzu. And this brand new project is a Nintendo Switch emulator. So this is the Yuzu Switch emulator. Very odd choice of names. I mean, Citra, Yuzu, they don't match the systems that they're meant for, but anyway, that really isn't a big point. What really is the point is this going to be a good thing? Is this going to be a bad thing? And already the reaction is kind of split. You have a lot of people who are excited to see this, and you have a lot of people who are terrified over this. And so I just want to talk about, what exactly, how this situation should pan out, or should I say, how this situation is going to pan out. Haha, bad pun. Anyway, moving on. Now, John from Spawn Wave actually did a pretty good video on this already, and the sentiments that he has were actually really eye-opening, because when I saw this news post, my immediate thought was, oh no, this is just bad. But after watching his video, showed me another perspective as to why this may not be a very big deal. And basically what he had to say was that this emulator, even though it's now currently in development, that does not necessarily mean it's already the end of the world for the Nintendo Switch, because this emulator could very well take multiple years to come together, and by the time it's in a very advanced state, like compared to say something like Project 64 or Dolphin, it would be years after the Switch is released, and by then we could even be on Nintendo's next system, whether it be the Switch 2 or something else. And so I'm glad he brought out this point, because, like I said, it changed my mind on the matter, and it does go to show that emulators don't necessarily mean the end of the world. Now, yes, at first glance, this does look bad. It's an emulator for a system that's just barely 1 year old. In fact, it's not even 1 year old yet. It's only the middle of January. The Switch doesn't turn 1 until March 3rd. So this is very early on, and I'm wondering exactly how it's going to pan out, because the Switch is an interesting system in the fact that it is using an NVIDIA Tegra processor, a custom-built Tegra chip, and even though Nintendo and NVIDIA have described it as being custom-built, this is still a variant of the Tegra X1, which has been around for a little while, so a lot of technical folks already have a pretty good idea of how this chip works. That's why they've been able to get into the system's kernel already. That's why we see so many movements being made with the hacking scene and whatnot. And really, with that being the case, it makes me wonder exactly how long is it going to take before this emulator is fully up and running. Now, let's just get one thing out of the way. Emulators are not actually illegal. It is totally legal for these developers to reverse engineer consoles and create emulators for them. Where it becomes illegal is when people go and they download ROMs. Now, because downloading a ROM, even if it's for a game, in most cases it's for a game that's been out of circulation for eons. But even if, you're downloading a ROM for an old game, you technically don't have the right to do it. Yes, it's an old game. Yes, more than likely, nobody's actually making any money off of it. You go on eBay, you may be able to find a copy, but you'll be buying it used, not brand new, right? So technically, what does it matter if you go and just download a ROM instead? Well, yeah, it's still copyright infringement. It's still someone's property. So as long as that copyright holds, then yeah, it is illegal to obtain a ROM, because ROMs are tied to file sharing, and file sharing is illegal in a lot of countries. So yeah, it's piracy, all right? That's what it is. It's piracy. And emulation is pretty much, for the most part, tied to piracy, although it's not necessarily, it goes hand in hand. Yes, you can be an emulation pirate, but not everyone who uses emulators are actually pirates. In some cases, people who own emulators, they've obtained all these files rightfully. They own the system. They may have flashed the BIOS, for example. Like I know for PS2 emulators, it's actually illegal for you to obtain the BIOS off the internet. You actually need to provide the BIOS for yourself to use the emulator, or at least you should, ethically speaking. And then you also have people who create backups on their own. They own these games and they create the data for the emulators from their own copies of the game that they bought. So again, emulator does not automatically mean illegal. People who are using emulators do not automatically equate to being pirates. And that's really the thing that kind of makes this situation kind of interesting, because, of course, you know, the general reaction to this, even on the Twitter post where this was announced, you know, the first response to it is, you guys should really wait a while before releasing. Let the console have a nice, healthy life in library. Then once everyone can reap the benefit, once it's nearing the end of life, releasing now will just hurt the platform. Some grammatical errors there, but basically what that person is saying is, you know, wait until the Switch is dead and gone before releasing this emulator, because at that time it wouldn't matter anymore. Or at least it would matter a whole lot less, which is true. But again, this emulator may not take complete form for the next several years. That Citra emulator that the same team has been working on, they've been working on it for several years, and it's still not in a completely, you know, like perfect state. Like, it's still not as advanced as examples I gave before, like Dolphin and Project 64, which are two very well-known emulators. So this Yuzu emulator could take some time. Like, for instance, PS3 and 360 have taken eons to be emulated, and still their emulators aren't, like, you know, fully up to snuff, right? And those consoles are well over a decade old at this point. So the Switch may or may not, you know, end up being in a similar situation where it could take multiple years before that emulator fully comes together. But it will be interesting to see exactly how this situation pans out, and also exactly how Nintendo intends to secure the Switch going forward, because Nintendo's last few systems have been very easy to exploit. The Wii was very easy, so was the DS, GameCube as well, and the Wii U also was very easy to exploit, even 3DS. And although emulators for the, like, for instance, the 3DS still isn't up to snuff, we do have emulators for the Wii U, the Cemu emulator, which is in a pretty advanced state at this point. So it goes to show you that, yes, Nintendo systems have been very easy to exploit, very easy to reverse engineer, to break into, which has opened the floodgates for stuff like piracy and whatnot, and homebrew. And everyone's wondering, like, you know, how are things going to be for the Switch? Because, like I said, the Xbox 360, the PS3, those are still very secure systems. Same applies to the PS4 and the Xbox One. So is the Switch going to be more like its brethren, or is it going to be more like the competitor systems? And I think at this point Nintendo may have learned, you know, how to secure their systems, which is probably why we don't have things like an internet browser. Even probably that's why we don't even have the ability to do stuff like attaching external hard drives or USB drives, or even transferring data from the Switch to the micro SD card. All of that could be used as an exploit, which has been done so in the past with Nintendo systems. So after seeing how hackers have found very interesting ways to get into the system, I think Nintendo has just gotten wiser about it, and that's why the Switch OS is so basic. Because if the OS is basic and the feature set is very limited, then you can't really do much with it unless you really put the effort into it, which is what the hacking community has been trying to do. And they're making progress, but it's still not at the point where they can do anything major to it yet. But of course, only time will tell to see exactly what comes of all of this. But basically how I feel about it is, as long as these Yuzu developers are doing it for, you know, good purposes, like, you know, just tinkering around with the system and whatnot, and seeing, like, you know, what interesting ways it can be used in, that okay, fine. But when it comes to the point where games can be played easily on PC, then yeah, that's when we're gonna have a problem. If that happens, let's say 2 or 3 years from now, when the Switch will still very much most likely be relevant, then yeah, then we will have a problem. But we'll just have to wait and see. The Dolphin emulator, as advanced as it was during the days of the Wii, didn't really do much to deter it. You know, like, it didn't, like, you know, hurt it that much, but, you know, there were still people out there who were getting Wii games for free and playing them on PC. So hopefully the same thing doesn't happen with the Switch, because piracy is just not good. Developers do not want to be on a platform that can be easily exploited. That's why for several years developers kind of avoided PC, because, well, A, it was kind of, you know, complicated, because the hardware still was very difficult to work with because everyone had different types of hardware and whatnot. PC gaming was for a long time very complicated, but part of it was also because how easy it is to pirate a game. That's also why a lot of developers avoided PC for several years. And now it's seeing a great resurgence thanks to Steam, which has made things a lot more secure. But even now, even with as good as Steam is and other online platforms, there's still piracy because you can still torrent quite a number of recent releases. So yeah, developers still have to, to weigh that decision as should they bring their game to PC, because if they do, it could very well be cracked and pirated. And of course, they don't want the same thing to happen with consoles, because they're supposed to be secure environments. When that environment is breached, that creates a very, very complicated situation. So hopefully things don't turn out too badly here. Hopefully these user developers, they work on this with only the best of intentions, and it doesn't get into the hands of the true evildoers anytime soon. But we'll just have to wait and see how this whole thing turns out. Just wanted to get my thoughts on this subject. Leave your thoughts down below as well, and I hope to see you in the next video.